The narrow lane behind Giovanni's restaurant was faintly illuminated by a solitary streetlight, casting elongated shadows across the weathered brick buildings. Marcus Bennett stood quietly in the doorway, observing as one of his staff members crouched next to two young children who had sought refuge beneath a makeshift cardboard shelter. At 37 years old, Marcus was the owner of a chain of upscale restaurants spread throughout the city. However, this evening he was carrying out one of his usual undercover visits to witness the true functioning of his businesses when management wasn't overseeing things. As he was about to exit through the back door, he spotted the blonde waitress who had served him earlier that night. He remembered her name was Sarah from her name tag. She looked to be in her mid-20s, with kind eyes and a soft demeanor that had left an impression on him during his dinner. Now, watching from the shadows, Marcus saw her reaching into a canvas bag, carefully pulling out a few dinner rolls wrapped in a clean kitchen towel. "Here you go, Emma and Jake," Sarah said gently, her voice clearly audible in the stillness of the alley. "They're still warm from dinner service." The two children, who appeared to be around 7 and 4 years old, gazed up at Sarah with pure appreciation. The older boy, wearing a thin gray hoodie and worn sneakers, eagerly extended his hand for the bread, while the younger girl, clutching a small stuffed toy, smiled shyly as Sarah tenderly brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Thank you, Miss Sarah," the boy said politely. "Emma was really hungry, but I told her you'd come, like you always do." Marcus felt a pang in his chest as he began to understand the scene unfolding before him. This waitress, earning barely above minimum wage at his restaurant, was using her own money and resources to feed homeless children living in the alley behind his establishment. "Jake, have you two been staying warm enough?" Sarah asked, kneeling to speak with them at their level. "I brought an extra blanket from home if you'd like it." The little girl, Emma, nodded seriously. "We've been okay. Jake takes good care of me. He says, we have to be brave until Mama comes back." Sarah's expression softened as she looked at these two children enduring hardships no child should have to face. "You're both so brave," she said. "And Jake, you're an amazing big brother." Marcus stayed hidden, moved by this compassionate moment unfolding so close to his business. He had never noticed these children before, and had no idea that people were living in such dire conditions so near his profitable restaurant. "Miss Sarah," Jake said quietly, "the man in the fancy suit came around again today asking questions about you. He seemed nice, but we didn't tell him anything because you said it was our secret." Sarah's face grew anxious. "What did he look like, Jake?" she asked. "Tall with dark hair. He wore a really expensive jacket," Jake replied. "He asked the people at the sandwich shop if they knew about a lady who comes to help kids in the alley." Marcus suddenly realized that Jake was describing him. Earlier that day, he had been asking local business owners about reports of someone feeding homeless individuals in the area, thinking it might be an unauthorized charity operation that could harm his restaurant's reputation. Now, understanding the reality, Marcus felt ashamed of his initial assumptions. This young woman was not running a questionable operation. She was simply offering acts of kindness to children with nowhere else to turn. "Don't worry about the man in the suit," Sarah reassured the children. "I'll take care of that right now. Let me check if you need anything else." Sarah spent a few more minutes with Emma and Jake, ensuring they had proper shelter and warmth for the night. She gave them a small flashlight and promised to return the following evening with more food. As Sarah stood to leave, Marcus made a decision that would alter everything. He stepped out from the shadows and approached cautiously, wanting to avoid startling the children or making Sarah uncomfortable. "Excuse me," Marcus said softly, his hands visible, his tone as non-threatening as possible. Sarah immediately spun around, placing herself protectively between Marcus and the children. Her eyes widened with recognition as she realized he was the same well-dressed customer from earlier that evening. "Sir, I can explain," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her obvious nerves. "There's nothing to explain," Marcus said gently. "I'm Marcus Bennett. I own Giovanni's restaurant, and I've been watching what you do here every night." Sarah's face drained of color, and Marcus could see her wondering if she was about to lose her job for taking leftover food from the restaurant. "Mr. Bennett, I know I should have asked permission before taking the bread," she said quickly. "But these children were hungry, and the food would have just been thrown away. I can pay you back for whatever it cost." Marcus looked past Sarah at Emma and Jake, watching this exchange with concerned expressions. These children clearly relied on Sarah's kindness, and the thought of them going hungry because of corporate policies made him feel sick. "Sarah," Marcus said carefully, "you're not in trouble. In fact, I want to learn more about what you're doing here. Would you mind if I sat down and spoke with all of you?" For the next hour, Marcus heard about Emma and Jake's situation. Their mother had suffered a mental health crisis and had been hospitalized 3 months ago. With no other family to care for them, the children had been living on the streets, too afraid of the foster care system to seek help. Sarah had discovered them 2 weeks earlier and had been quietly providing food, blankets, and whatever support she could on her modest salary. She had also been researching social services, trying to figure out how to help them without separating them or putting them in danger. "I know I should have reported this to someone," Sarah confessed to Marcus. "But I was afraid they'd be split up or placed somewhere unsafe. I've been trying to find a family member or a trustworthy guardian who could take them both." Marcus looked at this remarkable young woman, sacrificing her own resources to care for children she barely knew, and something inside him shifted. For years he had focused on profits and business expansion, but Sarah had reminded him of something far more important. "Sarah," Marcus said finally, "what if I told you I want to help? Not just with food, but with finding a real solution for Emma and Jake." In the following weeks, Marcus worked alongside Sarah, using his resources and connections to navigate the complex world of social services and child welfare. They eventually located Emma and Jake's aunt, who lived in a neighboring state and had been desperately searching for the children since their mother's hospitalization. The reunion was emotional, and the aunt expressed profound gratitude to Sarah for keeping the children safe. She immediately began the process of gaining legal guardianship and invited Sarah to stay in touch with Emma and Jake as they adapted to their new life. However, Marcus's relationship with Sarah had grown into something neither of them had anticipated. Her compassion and selflessness had opened his heart in ways he never imagined. He found himself eagerly anticipating their daily conversations and admiring her strength and kindness. "Sarah," Marcus said one evening, as they walked through the now empty alley where Emma and Jake had once sought refuge, "I need to tell you something." Sarah looked up at him with those same kind eyes that had first captured his attention. "What is it, Marcus?" "When I first started investigating reports about someone feeding homeless people behind my restaurant, I was worried about liability and public image," Marcus admitted. "I was thinking like a businessman, not as a human being." Sarah smiled warmly. "You were protecting your livelihood. That's understandable." "But you showed me something I had forgotten," Marcus continued. "You showed me that success means nothing if we don't use it to help others. You've changed how I see everything." 6 months later, Marcus and Sarah stood together at the grand opening of the Bennett Foundation's first transitional housing facility for homeless families. The facility would provide not just shelter, but comprehensive support services to help families rebuild their lives. Emma and Jake were among the honored guests, now thriving in their aunt's care but still maintaining their special bond with Sarah. They insisted on helping cut the ribbon, eager to contribute to the solution for other children facing similar struggles. "You know," Sarah said to Marcus as they watched Emma and Jake play with other children in the facility's safe courtyard, "I never imagined that hiding bread in my bag would lead to all this." Marcus gently took her hand, marveling at how this woman had transformed not only his business practices, but his entire understanding of what truly mattered in life. "I never imagined that following an employee into an alley would lead me to fall in love," Marcus replied softly. Sarah smiled, the same radiant expression that had first captivated him. "Love has a way of finding us when we're focused on loving others." As they watched the sunset paint the sky above their new facility, Marcus reflected on how a simple act of kindness in a dark alley had illuminated the path to a completely different kind of life. Sarah hadn't just been hiding bread in her bag that night. She had been carrying hope, compassion, and love. And in discovering her secret, Marcus had uncovered his own capacity for love, the kind that changes everything. Sometimes, he thought, the most valuable things we find are those we weren't even looking for.